The Iron Forest. The trees whispered in languages no human should understand. Deep within the Iron Forest, where the sun rarely pierced the canopy and the roots themselves seemed to watch intruders, a crooked hut stood on two massive, chicken-like legs. It moved when it wanted to. It groaned, sighed, and slept like a beast. The locals knew to stay away. They called it the Cradle of Death. But inside that hut, a child was being raised by something far older than legend. Irina Volkov was no ordinary child. She had no memory of parents, no warmth from lullabies. Only bone dust, boiling cauldrons, and the cold, merciless tutelage of Baba Yaga. The witch wasn't a story. She was real, and she was preparing Irina for something terrible. Again, the crone rasped, watching as Irina, 8 years old, held a knife made of obsidian and bone. She faced a phantom, an ethereal projection of a beast not of earth. The thing screamed and lunged, and Irina danced back, spun low, and struck upward into its neck. The specter vanished in a puff of black smoke. The knife hissed. "Too slow," Baba Yaga said. Irina bit her tongue and nodded. The training never ended. By the time she was 10, she could track demons by scent alone, curse a river dry, and break the will of a man with a whisper. She could recite the lost war chants of Mars, even though humans had never reached it. Books floated around her as she slept. Blades sharpened themselves at her breath. Baba Yaga taught her how to speak in dreams and move like smoke through walls. Every lesson came with a price, blood, time, or pain. But Irina never flinched. "What am I?" she asked one night, sitting by the fire, her long auburn hair wild and tangled. "You are mine," Baba Yaga answered. "My sword, my storm, my child. But I am not a witch." "No, you are worse." The crone grinned, stirring a pot of glowing bones. "You are what witches fear." Irina learned the world beyond the forest was soft, filled with fools who thought steel and pride would protect them. They had forgotten the dark, forgotten what waited between stars. But Baba Yaga hadn't. She told Irina of a war, older than any memory, between Earth and a race of devourers, creatures from beyond the Orion Veil. They had once invaded, only to be repelled by Earth's oldest magic. Not missiles, not machines, spells, sacrifices, rituals, blood. "They will come again," Baba Yaga whispered. "And when they do, this time they won't find Earth unguarded." Irina grew into a woman under the watch of gods and monsters. Her body became a weapon. Her mind became a fortress. Her heart, cold but not cruel. She had seen too much of cruelty to allow herself the luxury. At 16, Baba Yaga took her to the edge of the forest, to a clearing where the stars danced in unnatural patterns. She pointed up. "Soon, the sky will bleed," she said, "and the world will call for a champion." Irina turned to her. "And if they do not accept me, they will," Baba Yaga grinned, toothless and fierce, "or they will perish." Then she handed Irina her final gift, a blade of meteoric iron, cold to the touch, with runes that burned blue in moonlight. It hummed with ancient power. It would drink only the blood of invaders. "The hut will find you when you need it," the witch said, placing a bony hand on her shoulder. "But now, you must walk among them. Hide your fire. Bear your name. Let them think you are just a woman." Irina nodded. She did not cry. She did not look back. She walked out of the forest wearing a long coat over ceremonial armor, her hair loose, her eyes sharp as broken glass. The wind carried her scent, oak, ash, and old magic. The birds fell silent. The ground did not dare shift beneath her feet. A week later, the sky cracked. The first Zorinthian scout ship entered Earth's atmosphere, disguised as a comet. It struck the Arctic Circle and deployed automated harvesters. Entire research stations vanished within hours. Global military forces scrambled. Nations argued. Satellites failed. But one woman had already been watching. From a rooftop in Murmansk, Irina watched the northern sky glow red. "It begins," she whispered. She reached into her coat and drew the meteoric blade. It gleamed like starlight, soaked in blood. In the dark, Baba Yaga's voice echoed faintly, "Go, my blade. Show them Earth, is not theirs to take. And with a final look at the sky, Irina Volkov disappeared into shadow. She was no longer the witch's ward. She was her vengeance, and the stars would soon remember fear. The general of the forgotten arts. 10 years had passed since the first Zorinthian ship fell from the stars. Earth was no longer innocent. Cities had burned. Oceans had boiled. Humanity's faith in its machines was shattered. The aliens fought like nightmares. Perfect, cold, hive-bound tacticians with living armor and weapons that folded reality in upon itself. Nations had fallen in days, but the tide did not remain theirs. Because Earth had found its monster, General Irina Volkov. Her name was spoken with awe and dread across every Terran military command post. She had risen like a ghost from nowhere, unregistered, unendorsed, unorthodox. But she won battles no one else could. Her command style was unrelenting, unpredictable, and terrifyingly effective. She didn't just defeat the Zorinthians. She humiliated them. On the bridge of the TDF Revenant, a stealth carrier that hovered just outside the debris field of Neptune, Irina stood alone before the tactical display. Her crimson greatcoat hung heavy on her shoulders. Her meteoric blade rested against the console, humming faintly in warning. Alien ships pulsed in a dance of perfect formation. But Irina's eyes were half closed, as if listening to something no one else could hear. "Status?" she asked softly. Colonel Koresh, her second-in-command, straightened. Enemy fleet vectoring toward Titan's moon base. 23 cruisers, 5 dreadforms. Our satellites have been jammed. Command requests withdrawal. Irina gave a thin smile. Command, she said flatly, want to retreat every time they feel the chill of space. But Earth's heart is on Titan. They take that moon, they control the entire outer defense web. We lose the war. Koresh hesitated. Then what do we do? She turned to him. We do what they never expect. With a wave of her hand, she summoned a holographic formation that twisted the field into spirals and overlapping rings. Her strategy looked like madness to anyone trained in standard doctrine. It was not madness. It was ritual. The Revenant's engines pulsed as the ship shifted into position. But Irina wasn't done. She walked to the central chamber, a private sanctum she had installed against regulation. Inside, strange runes pulsed across the walls. Bones from extinct animals, and perhaps other things, hung like wind chimes. A pool of black water steamed beneath her boots. She pulled a vial from her belt, a few drops of her own blood, and poured it into the pool. "Show me the path," she whispered. The water shimmered. Visions burst before her eyes. The alien formation, the cracks in their coordination, the places where their quantum links thinned under emotional stress. Things no human sensors could detect. She opened her eyes. The plan was clear. Outside, her elite strike team, Kashii, prepared without a word. Clad in dark armor etched with runes and marks of old Earth magic. They were more cult than military unit. Every member had been hand-selected by Irina. All had survived impossible trials. All would die for her, without question. As they boarded drop pods, one of them, Captain Danya Petrova, paused. "You sure this isn't a suicide run?" Irina looked her dead in the eyes. "It's not suicide if death's on our side." The pods launched in perfect silence. What followed became legend. Kashii tore through the alien command ship with supernatural precision. The Zorinthians, unable to interpret Irina's ritual formations, staggered in confusion as their battle mind network scrambled. Ritual drones, etched with sigils, overloaded their systems. Gravity fields collapsed in on themselves. Irina appeared mid-battle, her blade singing through dreadform plating. With every kill, her movements became faster, each slash laced with power that bent the laws of motion. Zorinthian warlords, beings bred for centuries to be without fear, fled from her. By the time the Terran fleet arrived, the battle was already won. Titan was safe. In the aftermath, the Terran High Command convened in secret. Footage of the battle, what little could be recorded, was inconclusive. Irina had done the impossible, again. But questions were growing. She doesn't follow protocol. She doesn't obey orders. She uses whatever that is, barked Admiral Pierce, stabbing a finger toward the hazy image of a black pool and flickering runes. "We don't even know what she is." "She's a weapon," whispered General Tenga. "A dangerous one, but she's ours." Back aboard the Revenant, Irina stood in her quarters, staring into the stars. A whisper crawled along her mind. Baba Yaga's voice, faint but unmistakable. "This is only the beginning, little flame." Irina smiled. If the galaxy had forgotten Earth's old magic, it would soon remember. Because Baba Yaga hadn't raised a daughter, she had forged a war, and Irina Volkov, General of Earth's Forgotten Arts, was just getting started. The Empire breaks upon her will. The stars churned with Zorinthian wrath. Over 36 capital ships, shaped like obsidian serpents, descended on Earth's defense perimeter. Spines of violet energy crackled along their hulls. Behind them, a tide of carriers, bone ships, and war beasts surged through the black. This was not a raid. This was extinction. At the heart of the armada was a god among monsters. Over-Warlord Shakor, the immortal strategist. Clad in organic armor that constantly regenerated, Shakor had never lost a battle in 3 centuries. His war record stretched from the moons of Andorak to the glassed worlds of the Verachi ascendancy. And now he had come for Earth. But Earth had Irina Volkov. The Revenant floated silent above the lunar defense grid. It had powered down all emissions, hidden among the corpses of old satellites and debris, just as Irina had ordered. Inside her war room, lit only by candlelight and the pulsing blue of ritual glyphs, she stared at the slow encroachment of the Zorinthian fleet. Over 30 vessels, Koresh whispered beside her. "If they breach Earth orbit." "They won't," she said, voice calm as frost. "Not before they bleed." She walked to the center of the room. A ritual circle had been carved into the floor, half technology, half incantation. Symbols and forgotten dialects danced underfoot. She knelt and pressed a blood-stained palm into the center. A tremor passed through the hull. The ship groaned. Outside, unseen to any camera or scope, the stars seemed to bend. And the ley lines, those hidden threads of energy crisscrossing Earth's magnetic soul, awoke. "Begin the weave," she commanded. Kashii operatives across the fleet activated sacred nodes, obsidian relics infused with Baba Yaga's teachings. These devices weren't weapons in the traditional sense. They sang to the old bones of the planet. They called to the void between, and the void answered. Across the system, strange phenomena erupted. Gravitational inversions near Mars, silent EMP bursts over Europa, solar flares that moved against logic. To the Zorinthians, it was chaos. Their hive minds struggled to adapt. Shakor roared through the psychic network. "Disrupt the interference. Locate the source." But there was no source. The source was Earth itself, and Irina was its mouth. Then the trap was sprung. From the shadows of Saturn's rings, human ships emerged, cloaked, silent, powered by dark reactors hidden from standard sensors. They weren't large, but they moved like phantoms, weaving through alien formations and striking at critical nodes. Each strike was coordinated not by radar or command line, but by Irina herself. She felt the alien fleet, its flow, its rhythm, its weaknesses. The Zorinthians adapted fast, but not fast enough. Half a dozen ships blinked out, caught in a net of collapsing microsingularities, another of Irina's forbidden tools. Then came the moment of reckoning. Irina stood at the helm of her personal drop pod. She wore no helmet, only a dark red combat cloak laced with arcane embroidery. The meteoric blade hummed at her side, glowing violet in anticipation. Koresh saluted her. "You're really doing this?" She nodded. "Shakor must fall. The fleet is only his shadow. Kill the core and the mind collapses. And you'll face him alone?" "Not alone," she whispered. "I carry her with me." The pod launched. She tore through atmosphere, through enemy flak, through energy shields, untouched. The pod crashed through the hull of Shakor's flagship like a thunderbolt. She emerged amid a hall of horrors, twisted corridors pulsing with biological light. Zorinthian guards swarmed, screeching. She moved like a tempest. Every slash of her blade severed flesh and soul. Blood splashed across walls, yet no drop touched her. She whispered words that bent perception. Bullets curved away. Time staggered. Finally, she reached the throne chamber. Shakor stood tall, nearly 3 meters of armored monstrosity, his form pulsing with layered muscle and metal. His 4 eyes burned with fury. A halberd of star-forged bone hissed in his hand. "You," he growled. "The Earth Witch." She didn't reply. She just raised her blade. They clashed. Shockwaves tore the chamber apart. His strength was immense, each strike capable of shattering concrete. But she was faster, fluid, ethereal, dancing through his blows like wind through ash. He landed a strike. Her ribs cracked. She staggered. Blood dripped from her mouth. He laughed. "You are flesh. I am forever." She spat blood and stood tall. "No," she said. "You're a fool." She drew a small stone from her belt, marked with Baba Yaga's rune, and whispered a single word. The stone shattered. A scream echoed through dimensions. Shakor froze. His armor cracked. His mind, once linked to thousands, imploded as Irina severed the psychic thread with that single cursed invocation. His body convulsed, collapsing into itself, until only bone dust remained. Irina stood over the ashes. "This world is not yours." Outside, the alien fleet went mad, leaderless, confused. Ships collided, scattered, surrendered. The war was not over, but the heart of the Empire had just stopped beating. The witch's legacy lives on. Earth didn't celebrate. Not at first. The sky was still scarred. The outer colonies still burned. The oceans still held the bones of ships that had failed to return. And though the Zorinthian fleet had fractured, its remnants remained, fleeing, hiding, snarling like wounded wolves in the void. But the Over-Warlord was dead. The chain of command shattered. For the first time in decades, Earth breathed, and the galaxy noticed. From the outer rim to the trade worlds of the Hallex Accord, news of Shakor's death spread like wildfire. The unstoppable empire had been stopped, not by superior fleets, not by technological parity, but by a human. A general. A woman raised in the dark. A witch's blade. On Earth, governments tried to seize the narrative. Press releases spoke of brave soldiers, tactical brilliance, Earth's indomitable will. But among the ranks, among the colonies, among the soldiers who'd seen her in battle, one name was whispered with reverence. Irina Volkov. The Revenant had returned to low Earth orbit, but its commander was absent. For days, the higher-ups scrambled to contact her. They didn't understand that Irina hadn't returned for medals or parades. She had vanished the moment Shakor's ship went dark. Only Koresh knew where she had gone. She walked once more through the iron forest. The trees parted for her like old friends. Mist curled around her feet, not with menace but welcome. Birds remained silent, watching. The wind whispered in forgotten languages. And then she saw it, the hut, still standing on those great chicken legs, still breathing, still waiting. It turned to face her slowly, creaking with age and memory. A figure emerged from its door. Baba Yaga. She looked no different. Ageless, terrible, timeless. "You've returned," the witch rasped. Irina dropped to one knee. "I did what you made me to do." "No," Baba Yaga said, stepping forward, voice softer now. "You did what you chose to do. The choice makes the difference." Irina looked up, her eyes hard. "And what now? Am I done?" The witch leaned down, her face inches from Irina's. "Done? Child, this was only the beginning. The stars are vast. The things that fed the Zorinthians are still hungry. The void is patient." "I'm tired," Irina admitted. "I've given everything." "You have one thing left," the witch said. Irina frowned. "What?" Baba Yaga smiled, mysterious, sad, proud. "A future." The forest pulsed. Behind them, a second figure stepped forward from the mist. A girl, maybe 10, dirty-faced, dark-eyed, wild-haired, like Irina had been. She carried a small satchel and a rusted combat knife. "She knocked on my door," Baba Yaga said. "Like you once did." Irina stared at the child. "She's like me?" "No," the witch said. "She'll be like her. And you'll teach her." Irina hesitated. "I'm not a mother." "You're not," the witch said. "You're a legacy." Weeks later, the Terran High Council convened in a chamber carved into the lunar bedrock. They debated the future of Earth's military doctrine. Magic-infused weapons, ley line reactors, psionic rituals. None of it had been properly cataloged or understood. Volkov defies every protocol, Admiral Pierce growled. "She's a loose cannon." "She saved the species," countered Tenga. "Twice." "She's a threat to centralized command." "She's a warning to anything that looks our way ever again." There was silence. Then came a message, delivered by hand, sealed in wax. It read only, "The blade has returned to the forest. Should the stars fall again, I will answer. Until then, Earth is safe." Signed, General Irina Volkov. No coordinates, no frequency, no reply. She was gone. But legends never vanish. Among border colonies, they speak of a red-cloaked ghost who appears in times of desperation, wielding a blade that drinks starlight. Pirates who dared raid protected worlds vanished without trace. Alien scouts who sniffed too close to Earth were found broken, memories ripped from their minds. And somewhere, in the shadowed woods of an unnamed planet, a hut walks on chicken legs. Inside, a woman teaches a girl to fight, to see the paths between reality, to speak to the bones of the world. The next blade is being forged. And should the galaxy forget its lesson again, the witch's legacy will remind them.